So here's a few wide receivers that aren't going to help you here in Week 16, and you should drop them. The first one's Mike Williams of the Los Angeles Chargers. Mike Williams, he's been struggling the last few weeks, and he hasn't had a double-digit fantasy day since Week 10. And this week, he's in a decent matchup, I would say, but I still can't trust him versus the Denver Broncos, who give up the 15th most fantasy points to wide receivers. Williams, he's not making plays as much. Justin Herbert spreading that ball around, and guys like Tyron Johnson and Jared Guyton have stepped up as well, and Keenan Allen, he should be 100% hopefully this week. After last week, he was in a limited role, so Mike Williams, he's banged up as well also, but he's more of a deep ball threat than anything, and he's a receiver still owned in 64% of leagues, but I would drop him even in Dynasty and Keeper leagues as well, because I don't think his value will be that great. The second wide receiver to drop is DJ Chark, the Jacksonville Jaguars. DJ Chark, it's been a bad season for him after a breakout season last year for Chark with the quarterback changes, with 3 different quarterbacks, also the injuries on and off this season. It's just been a total mess for Chark. And Chark, he's owned in a bunch of fantasy leagues still, but he's a guy you can't trust. He hasn't reached double-digit fantasy points since Week 9, and last week was his best game since Week 11, where he only had a mediocre game with 4 catches for 53 yards, and this week he's got a tough matchup versus Chicago. You're not going to use him or trust him here. Chicago gives up the 3rd least amount of fantasy points to wide receivers. So DJ Chark in Dynasty, Keeper, and obviously redraft leagues, he's an easy drop. And the 3rd and final receiver I would drop this week in Week 16 is Tyler Boyd of the Cincinnati Bengals. Boyd, his value's gone down a whole lot with Joe Burrow going down for the season with the torn ACL. And then yesterday in that Monday Night Football game, the injury didn't help also for Tyler Boyd, sustaining a concussion. So Boyd, he's probably not going to play on the short week here. He left the game immediately with the concussion and couldn't play, so he's going to be out. And he's got a decent matchup versus Houston, but even if he was playing, he's a receiver I really can't trust. And now with the injury and some decent options on the wire, he's an easy drop here as Tyler Boyd. So that's a few wide receivers I would drop here heading into Week 16.